Good afternoon. Welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase here with the indomitable Ian White. Ian here today representing Crux. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm very good. And yourself, Simon? How are you?
Resplendent, feeling good, counting down the days till I get that little injection in my arm. Just to be clear, that's a vaccination rather than anything else.
Yeah.
Yes, not bad at all. Obviously, excluding what's going on out there, it does seem there's still a lot of business to be done.
Yeah, I mean, the markets, we were talking off air, weren't we, just a few minutes ago, how robust it is. But the figures coming in the early parts of January, certainly I did 15 accountability calls on Friday, and it was the numbers coming in are good, very good.
So we're here today. Crux is a recruitment business, obviously, that you've been working with for some time now. And I suppose one of the key elements there is recruitment quite often is the canary in the cage, isn't it, in terms of how the market is going. Just on that on that basis point, how are you guys seeing it out there? Is the labour market still particularly mobile?
Yes, it's very busy. The recruitment is where we're listing plenty of vacancies and we're listing plenty of candidates, and as a result, doing lots of placements. So yes, I mean the recruitment market is still strong from the agency and the prop tech sectors, which is where we tend to specialise in. So yeah, we're seeing a high demand from employers, and we're seeing plenty of good quality candidates to suit. So. All running smoothly and as expected, if not better, perhaps.
That's good. Could you explain to me something that I've not particularly got my head around? And it's from talking to a few recruitment agents. Of course, there are others there, I should point out, Ian.
Yeah, we accept.
I couldn't get my head around, certainly in terms of the first 6 months of the year following on from lockdown. In my head, it felt like nobody should be moving. Everybody would have been grateful for having a job. And that just wasn't the case, was it? What do you put down to that almost willingness to take a move at what is quite a uncertain time?
Well, look, I think you're dealing with three different types of recruitment there. You've got people that don't have a job that are looking for one. Well, of course, that's a very different, their mindset about going out and finding a job is very different. You've got people that are probably quite happy where they are, but if the right opportunity was put in front of them, and they're quite challenging because clearly they will be walking away from employment rights into, in effect, for the first 2 years, no employment rights.
Yeah.
So if there is a challenge in the recruitment space at the moment that we're seeing is that you may well job offer somebody who genuinely thought they were up for moving, but when it really came to handing in notice, parents, relatives, and their own perhaps internal combustion engine decided against it on the grounds they were walking away from. If the worst came to the worst and they got made redundant, or for whatever reason they've got employment rights, and so that has and is a challenge. But of course, there are those that have made up their mind to move. They for whatever reason they're not being challenged where they are. They've not got the right progression. They don't think they're being paid enough. They've fallen out with the boss. The geography's changed. We've placed. I wouldn't want to say on air the percentages and be wrong, but a lot of the people that we've placed are where a company's rung me and said, "Look, Ian, my neg is moving to, or my lister or my manager's moving to here. Yeah. He's great. Please help him." You know, he asked me to put him in touch, but I want to give him a reference type of thing. I want you to help him find somewhere. Or we've had bosses ring up and say, "Look, reluctant, we've had to let people go because they've reimagined their business or they've restructured their business. And can you help these people find a job?" So, if you're moving, I don't know, from London to Cornwall, if you've made that lifestyle decision, you're gonna do it, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, but you're hinting at the moving from no employment right to from employment rights to no employment rights. That is a challenge. That is obviously a challenge.
So, what's happening at the moment in terms of the whole, so essentially mobility or workplace etiquette with new employment? Are you finding people that are already planning ahead and looking, more people being much more relaxed? I mean, there's a state agency, unlike the prop tech sector. Prop tech, we've always worked remotely. A lot of people work from home, so that's kind of us being wandering nomads, isn't it? But agents clearly, have a patch on the whole. But even there, is there more flexibility in terms of home working and things like that you're seeing from employers, or do they still, on the whole, want them in because agents famously have been given great dispensation to carry on working?
In terms of people operating stance, they're typically working in bubbles where they've got one team in, one team out, so that if the worst comes to the worst, it's not the whole team that has to isolate. But that's more of a structure for now, to get around the existing piece. Some businesses are certainly seeing the advantage, both in being able to recruit certain candidates in a more flexible approach to where you physically do your work from.
Yeah.
Some are more wedded to the traditional. We sit in rows of, you open the door and there's an estate agent sat on every desk, and they'll be there, and that's where they do their work, 8 till 6 or whatever the hours are. So I think that's very varied, and the age group of the age of the business owner typically will dictate their view towards that, I think.
You're not suggesting that some of the more experienced members of our profession are more Luddite driven?
Yes, as a rule, yeah, a little bit. I mean, clearly there are some people of senior age that have very, very forward-thinking views, and there are some people that are perhaps younger that are of the opposite. We should have talked about turning the phone off, shouldn't we? Before.
Is that your Uber Eats arriving?
No, it's actually an estate agent trying to get hold of me, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I mean, certainly it is easier to recruit good talent if there isn't a requirement for them to work from the office every day of the week.
It opens the pool, doesn't it? The pool of experience and people you can get after. I think that's the really exciting element there. You'll be aware we both work with Starbury, the website guys, and they've always had this approach, haven't they, where they can tap into talent wherever it is in the country, and in fact even in terms of the world. But that's really interesting. So Ian, in terms of obviously the fact that, look, there's 10 a penny recruiters out there, becomes obviously much more specialist when you're looking at the property and property trade specifically. But how do you guys differentiate yourselves on the whole from all the other recruiters that are out there?
I think there are 3 areas where I believe that we differentiate, and would certainly want to keep driving further that differentiation. The first one would be the way we acquire candidates is significantly different from most, if not all, certainly in the property arena. Whereas we don't use job boards. Well, we use one job board. We have one job board that we put them on there almost because you have to. Not because we particularly want to, but we have one job board. So we don't just simply get a vacancy and then go and run to the job boards and strip off all the CVs that are interested and pass them on to the clients. Because frankly, we would rather train them how to do that. I mean, that's part of what we do in the consultancy side of what we do. So if that's the type of recruitment somebody wants, we can help them with that, but we wouldn't charge them a fee for that process because it's not, we're not adding any value to what they could do themselves other than perhaps a little bit of time. So we use, there's 2 things I think we do that are very different. One is the technology we use with which to identify suitable candidates and nurture them to the point where they might be suitable for a vacancy. So we are typically permanently recruiting for our clients.
Yeah.
And then when they're ready, we go into the pool of people that are suitable. Some may be interested, some may not, but we're not sort of recruiting from the active job market to a vacancy that's just come up. We're recruiting to the active and passive job market all the time. So look, the best person is not the guy that's just been fired. The best person is the guy that the boss will fight to keep. Yeah. And we're looking through the passive market to connect our clients with the person that the other boss is going to fight to keep.
How do you balance what I can accept is a really difficult dynamic whereby you can work with agents and obviously recruitment clients over the years, and you might place obviously somebody with that business. How do you do what is a very common criticism of recruitment agents, where they are perceived to then bounce those people out as well? Because of course, that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, doesn't it? If they perceive, oh God, I don't want to deal with XYZ recruiter because they're only going to try and move them away just as they've got settled.
The best way we've done it is that we've actually got a term in our contract that says if it happens, we'll pay you £10,000 compensation. So it's actually in our terms.
Okay, hard coded to make sure that as much as possible can't happen or won't happen.
Well, look, I mean, I think, as you know, Simon, we are owned by estate agents who built Crux because they weren't very happy with the sort of behaviours you've just discussed, and some of the others. So our terms and the way we operate is, in such a way that we want to not break all the rules that have already offended the estate agency world. So, but the simplest way we felt about doing that was to put it into the contract, because, if we've got a network of brokers working for us, will we occasionally have someone that goes rogue? Yeah, but okay, we'll compensate you if that happens and then get rid of them. It hasn't happened yet, but we wanted to be watertight on it, that one, our people know that it's totally unacceptable behaviour. Two, if it happens, there is a cost. One to the business, and one it would immediately terminate their agreement with us to operate our brand. So, we're very strict on it.
Nice peace of mind there, really, to help people with that issue, because it is an issue. I mean, other recruiters that shall remain nameless have done a fantastic job getting people into me, but I know for a fact, luckily, the staff were happy enough to still be with us, and they just said, "Oh, he got on the phone the other day and sort of tried just saying, 'Are you completely happy?'" which felt a little bit sort of too close to the bone.
Yeah, look, I mean, we all know it happens. I think to be fair, there are good recruiters out there that wouldn't dream of doing it. They're slightly tarred with the same brush of the ones that do. A bit like there are agents that act badly and they get tarred with the brush. The good ones get tarred with the same brush. But, we decided, well, okay, we won't behave like that, but we'll also make it contractually very prohibitive to even think about it, because, and as far as I know, we're the only people that have that actually written into our agreement, that, and it's there, it's on our terms, and we will pay it. We haven't had to pay it yet, touch wood, we never will. But if it happened, I would pay it. And I would publicise I paid it.
Okay, great. I mean, it's nice to hear. In the same way that an agent, Ian, will often be, their success will be dictated by their stock. Win the right listings, and you'll do all right. Obviously, the true is ultimately going to be the same for you and your candidates, isn't it? You've mentioned one area there with your and I know we've spoken previously about, you have got some quite innovative technology that does that. Are you able to enunciate to enlarge on why you get into such a big pool of talent yourselves?
Just ask that question again, Simon, because I want to make sure I'm asking the one that you've asked.
I just want to understand, how are you able to, I suppose, guarantee a decent stream of candidates, really?
You can't. I don't think you can guarantee anyone a decent stream of candidates. What you can guarantee them is that if there is a good candidate out there, we'll filter them properly. We'll make sure that we only send up the right candidates that we believe would pass our structures. We have technology now that filters first and second phase filtering, and actually rejects clients on our candidates on behalf of our clients, because there are certain things that we know 99.9% of our clients wouldn't accept. Therefore, we just do that automatically. The person still goes into the database because they might fit something else. But in essence, we spend a lot with this technology, with social media marketing, email marketing. Our pool of candidates is about 8,000 at the moment. But to be honest with you, I don't think it's about. It's very much like prospecting an estate agent. So the size of my database is a little bit like me talking about the size of my Johnson. It's pointless.
Really.
When you're prospecting for candidates, it's about speaking to 100 people regularly until a vacancy comes up.
Yeah,
it's not about speaking to 1,000 people once in a blue moon.
Yeah, and having that
yes, we have a database of 8,000. Now, for some, that'll be quite small. There are agents that have been going a lot longer than us. But is it really? I mean, agents have got hundreds of thousands of buyers in their database, but at any given time, it's not about what's in it. It's about the ones that are looking, that could be persuaded, that could, maybe you find a vacancy that's 20 minutes nearer to home. Maybe you find a vacancy that's got a clearer route to promotion. Now, once we've established through the technology what their soft spots are, journey to work, fewer hours, no weekends, maybe they want to go out of corporate into independent. That's quite a common trend, because you typically get better quality leadership in the independent businesses, because you've got owner occupiers on the right involved at the coalface. So what we do is, we nurture those people that fit the right thing, and we nurture them directly for our clients. So the longer we work with a client, the more proficient we're going to get at having that group of people that we know would fit their culture, geography, way of doing things, the type of people they're after, whatever it might be that fits the bill. So when a vacancy comes up, we've already created that pool of people that we can go into. So we don't hit 10,000 people with a vacancy. We just don't do that. It's just not what we do. I don't think any recruiter does that, quite frankly. What we do is we hit the people that have already shown some form of behavior in their web habits, their social media habits, that would suggest they would like to be nearer to work or whatever it might be. We can do it. Because you've got to bear in mind that we know, I mean, and when I say we, the technology knows the journey that most people take to work.
Yeah.
So if a guy's taking he's traveling from A to B and he's done it for 5 years and a job at a higher salary comes up at C in the middle here, a little bit closer to home, it's half reasonable to suggest that whether he was looking or not, he might take a peek.
Yeah.
Or she. And that's the sort of gist of our technology. It's very complicated to try and talk about it, in depth on here, but that's the sort of thing that it does.
That makes sense. And what do you do in terms of, obviously, I was going to say recruitment from within the industry is easy. Of course, nothing like that is easy. But how do you cater for getting a pool of talent from outside of the industry as well? Do you actively go out looking for like people, I don't know, in the hospitality trade or in other trades that who might want to chance their arm in the estate agency world? Is there any way that you can widen the pool of who you're looking at by looking outside of the property industry?
Yeah, so we have two types of campaigns. One is what I call a job and a business specific campaign that the technology looks after, and then you've got the branding that's looked after by our good friend Starbury. And obviously that is not agency specific. That is just simply putting us out there as a recruiter. People are making contact all the time. They're then put into the database. And of course, we are getting a lot of people from the leisure industry, the hospitality industry, hotels, travel agents. A lot of those people are looking to retrain because their industries have been sadly, very much stressed by the current situation with the pandemic. So, but of course, you've then got different types of companies. So some companies really aren't wanting to train or don't do training, and therefore their insistence upon us, one of their prerequisites to us or any other recruiter they're working with, is they must have experience. Whereas we work with quite a lot of businesses that actually their brief to us is, we don't want an estate agent, we actually want someone from outside the industry so we can teach them our way, rather than them come with their own baggage and their own ideas. You will get a lot of people on day one say, well, that's not what we did in my old job, and it's like, ooh. So bosses, a little bit like, do they stay open? Are they going to be flexible? The question you asked earlier, they fit all those colours. Some people only want experienced people because they're not perhaps good mentors themselves, or they don't want the effort or the cost of training. Others actually would prefer to take the person with the perfect attributes, all the right personality traits, and then teach them the estate agency piece.
Is there a different way of approaching recruits who are of that Generation Y group? Do you have to almost have a different pitch for them? Anecdotally, I hear from people that that they're perceived as being quite flighty, that they won't stick for a period of time. But it seems to be that a lot of these people have other desires and demands outside of just a basic salary.
I think in reality, the interview process stops that happening on both sides. I think a candidate of a certain type would probably, more often than not, reject a job offer from a boss of a certain type, and I think the reverse would happen. So they tend to attract. Of course, at the moment, you've got more of a candidate. The candidate desirability to take the job might be a little bit higher right now than maybe when we're in boom times, and so there might be a bit of imbalance there. But generally speaking, I think you end up the process. If a good recruiter understands the culture of the business, they should be implicit in that in the first place. Yeah. But even if you are just simply putting people in front of people for whatever reason, a lot of the time the interview process will work out. The boss will just say, well, I just didn't feel they were right. What they mean is they were too flighty, or they weren't from the right generation, or they didn't have the right. But I do think certain bosses of certain types are really going, if they're not already, they're going to find that their retention is almost, very poor, and therefore their recruitment costs will go through the roof. And they'll be recruiting a lot because they, let's be honest, the onus is not on the candidate to learn how to behave in front of the certain type of boss. It is down to the boss now to learn how to motivate and train and keep. we can't stop the progress of the human race. We can't stop.
Do you think that just genuinely, and you can admit if you're biased and stuck in your ways, do you think that on the whole is a good thing, or do you rue the good old days?
It depends in what sense. I mean, I actually think the sort of Generation X and the Millennials and all of that, they're labels that are used. They're used a little bit too freely, I think, because I'm not so sure that generalization. I know lots of people that would be considered Millennials that are absolutely have the values of maybe yesteryear.
Yeah,
I think it depends on parenting, who brought them up, lots of things. But look, there are certain things about yesteryear that, of course, I would hanker after as a recruiter if I was physically employing someone, because it's where I come from. Yeah. And I think the biggest difference is the speed with which a boss can fall out with a millennial versus, you could really fall out with your boss 20 years ago, but the next day you'd be best of mates.
Yeah.
Maybe now, if the boss pushes you too hard or does something you don't quite like, their reaction is to resign.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm out of it.
It's a bit like marriages. It just seems to be too easy to chuck in the towel,
Yeah, okay. Full subject. Move on.
I'd like to get rid of that bit. I'd anchor after that bit. That little bit more thick-skinned on both sides.
Okay, that's nice. And look, we talk back, going back to where we first met over in your Roman days, and I remember a bit of an epiphany for me was a lot of those people who got into the client services department had no real experience of estate agents per se. They were very young lads, but they had no fear of the phone, did they, at all? And literally, once you got as you said, to get rid of these lazy titles of Generation Y, these people just got on the phone, dawn and dusk, and let's be honest, put a lot of more experienced people to shame often.
Yeah, just so you know, Simon, your sound's it's very hard to hear you, but basically, look, I think that was a cause. There's a cause and effect there. The recruitment process was good in the fact that we were picking the right people. We were making it hard. There was a very high entry level to come into the call center, as you would know it, which is when you and me met, in fact, through the Repeat days. And so the recruitment was good in the fact that we recruited people with the right personalities, but then they were never ever allowed to think, or they were never ever allowed to sort of believe that perhaps not being on the phone was a good thing. It was just never, from day one they understood. So it's like if you allow someone to behave badly or averagely for 30 days and then moan on day 31 that they're not doing the job properly, well, I'm afraid that's your problem, not theirs. If from day one you give people a very clear message of what's expected, what results you're looking for, blah, 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 how that's going to be measured and monitored, what the praise and reward system is, what that means for their career. And of course, in those days, and I think it's different now from Roman's perspective because it's become a career in its own right, the call centre there, but it was really a sort of server year there before you went into a branch. It was a nursery. So these people had to prove themselves, and the real power for them was to go and get the company car and go and get into an office where the basic went up and the commission element, the commission potential went up. So there was a desire to get out, and therefore, obviously, if you're hiring people who's right from day one, their goal is to be in an office, and they know exactly what they've got to do to be signed off to go to an office. If you hire the right people, they'll fight to knock over those requirements, in terms of their effort and energy. But yes, you'd have been in there many a time when it was like you can hardly hear yourself think because everyone was on the phone. There was never, if you went in there and they weren't on the phone, it's like, well, what's gone wrong? The phone system must have broken.
It was like an estate agency Willy Wonka chocolate factory. It was beautiful to watch and see the energy and everything else in there. So yeah, it was great. Ian, let's get to I was going to say the actual crux of the matter, which I realised I've just fallen into the branding trap you set for me. But the crux of the matter for many people, obviously, first of all, finding the right candidate, but then secondly, of course, getting the right price point. Can you talk us through the different models and again, how Crux positions itself just from that pricing point of view?
Yeah, look, we want to we want the market to look at us, and the message we want to put into the marketplace is that recruiting to fill a vacancy is great. We do that. If you've got a vacancy and you want us to fill it, we'll do it. Our system doesn't make us necessarily the fastest, and we'll be honest and open about that, because we have to go into the nurture process. It takes a few days to kick in. It's not like we will just, we'll strip off the boards and do that. So we're not, but we can do that. If all you want to do is fill a vacancy, we can do that. But where we're moving with our clients now is to complete the people circle. So the first thing I think as a recruiter, for me, for the clients that are engaging with us on the full people piece, is the first thing we've got to do is try and avoid the vacancy in the first place if it's one through resignation. So we help and do some consultancy work. Of course, there's fees involved in this, where we help them fix their retention systems, making sure that they're retaining staff because they're creating the right environment. Often where it might be, let's say, for example, Simon, an older employer who hasn't really created the environment to retain today's employee, we provide that consultancy and we look at the reward and everything else. So the first thing I think a good recruiter should do, and certainly we do, is we should have avoidance of paying us. We should have avoidance of the vacancy requirement. But vacancies will come up, whether that's through expansion, people leaving, geography, change of heart, want to move on an industry. They're unavoidable, but they can be absolutely minimized if you get your retention piece. So the first thing is look at us as a retention agent as well as a recruitment agent.
Okay, right.
When the recruitment comes along, we've talked about where we differ in terms of the filtering and the actual finding of the candidate. We're very different in that sense that we get about, I don't know, maybe 100 CVs in through the technology now, maybe 120 CVs in a day through technology. However, honestly, 4 to 5 a day actually get pushed up to the clients, because the rest get stripped out or aren't quite right, or they get put into the system to be nurtured for something else at a later date. So we are going to save you time by filtering properly, and the candidate, we believe, the way we search for candidates means that the caliber in the first place is higher, but we are a little slower as a result. That is a fact. I
can never remember what's the saying? You can either have it one of 3 ways, can't you? You can't have it cheap, you can't have it. That's the basic premise, though, isn't it? Basically, if you're going to want quality, you're willing to wait for it.
Well, if you wanted to do it quickly, honestly, guys, don't pay a recruiter. Just go to the job boards. You don't need recruiters if you're going to do it quickly. But if you want,
I can't believe that, Ian. You're talking yourself out of work here. What's going on?
Because I think it's right. I think it's absolutely right, Simon, that if you are only going to use a recruiter that uses job boards, what's the point?
Yeah,
you don't need them. What you need is a recruiter that will help you with your retention, that will filter, save your time, and only put the right type of people in front of you. We then have the next piece of the journey where we can train, mentor, and develop people to perform to very high performance in the same way that you witnessed with the Romans people. We would use the same skills and processes to make sure they perform. And then the third piece, which we're just adding in now with good friends of yours, good friends of mine, I'm not going to name them yet until we announce the deal, where we will have a HR module very similar to the Peninsula piece, so that if something goes wrong, there is the full suite. Now, clients can deal with this on any one of those. They can say fix the retention and not deal with anything else. They can ask us to fill a job. They can ask us to do the training. They can ask us to look after the HR. We have all of those modularized. But where it really works is where we do a subscription model. There isn't pay every time we get you a person. There isn't a pay every time we fill. It's a fee to deal with your people piece. And that is becoming very, very popular with our clients, particularly either very small agents or the sort of slightly bigger regional ones. Agencies with 2 or 3 or 4, maybe not, but the either end of that spectrum, that's become very popular with them. So we're pushing on that angle. So any one of those 4 things. Now, none of the other recruiters offer anything really other than recruit.
Yeah.
They do the recruitment, and some of them do it well, some of them do it badly, as we've discussed. Some of them do it honestly, some of them do it dishonestly. I'd be happy to name the ones that do it right, because we all know who they are. But that's the piece that differentiates us. And then there's the charging model, because you can either pay for each piece of the module as we deliver it, or you can pay a subscription fee, which means you get it all, regardless of what happens.
Are you at all bothered by which option, or you manage to balance it so that actually whether anyone goes on just an ad hoc basis or a subscription model, it works out? Or ultimately, are you trying to, like many businesses, get that revenue stream into the business?
Look, a little bit of both, of course. Having regular revenue with estate agencies, good. It's a nice thing to have. It gives security, particularly in times like now. That's a nice have. But make no mistake, the people that are paying us the regular revenue that have moved onto that platform are paying us an awful lot less than they did the year before.
Is that right? I mean,
they are, but it's and of course it's rightly so, because they're getting in bed with us for a categoric contract.
Yeah.
And it's a contract. Now, whether that contract is for recruitment, whether the contract is for the retention piece, the recruitment piece, the training piece, the HR piece, or all of those, is down to the client's choice. We will guide. The very big agencies don't need the HR piece because they typically have that resource in-house. We wouldn't try and sell them. That's a waste of time. Some of the big corporates we work with, they have the training in place. I would tell them that their training is pretty average, because it is, sadly. But they have it in place. There's no point in me trying to get them to double up on the spend. But the individual agent, they really like the fact that their negotiator is not just going to be recruited, but they're going to be empowered then to be delivered through a system that turns them into rock stars.
Do you genuinely have an all of market capability, or do you have a sweet spot in sort of in terms of the kind of agency you represent? Some businesses clearly in this industry cater well for corporates. Others do smaller businesses. Are you quite comfortable bouncing between both ends of the spectrum, or is there a sweet spot for you?
There's a sweet spot in the fact that my preference as a company, my ideal client, are good, strong, independent businesses of any size.
Yeah.
Because they're quick to decide. They're normally easy to do business with. They're normally honest, decent people. And I'm not saying that in the bigger agencies they're not, but it's just too slow a process.
Yeah.
If I gave you a candidate today, Simon, and you were happening to try and fill a vacancy, and you call me in 2 weeks' time to say, yes, I'd like to see them, it's not my recruiters would just stop sending you CVs because they can just send the CV somewhere else. Because remember, we only send out 5 out of 100.
Okay.
These are real proper candidates. So when we send them out, we need a quick yes or no. As in, do you want to see them?
That's interesting. Have you ever said no to taking on a candidate?
Yes.
Okay. Can you name them?
Simon Whale.
I just keep sending it into you. That'd be a really interesting recruitment piece. Just we'll do the next show. We'll go through a top 10 of rejected candidates.
Yeah, look, we've rejected candidates. Well, when I say rejected candidates, I mean whether we actually said to them we're rejecting you, we just didn't put them in the system.
Okay.
We had one guy that was sexist at an interview, so we took him off. But we've also disinstructed ourselves from clients with vacancies. One very big brand.
Because they literally haven't delivered on their promise to the employee.
Partly because I don't think they're a very good employee to put people into. Okay. Secondly, they weren't particularly quick and easy to work with.
Yeah.
Thirdly, they handled the first furlough diabolically. And in my opinion, completely and utterly unfairly.
Let's stop going, because I think we're narrowing this down.
We're narrowing it down to 1 or 2, and then I'll be honest with you. We felt that they were recruiting people we were sending to them by cutting us out, and we couldn't quite prove it. So we put a fake CV into the system, of which they then contacted that fake person. So we offered them the opportunity. We explained to them what had happened and said, under those circumstances, you either go onto the subscription model or we can't work with you anymore, which is great for us because, they're a great pool of candidates now, happy days.
every cloud. Let's just, we haven't finished yet, but whilst we're doing this, some of these, my helpful marketing team have just knocked up a couple of the reviews you've got on the website. You are 5-star rated, I'm delighted to say. Here we've got one. I'll just cover your face for a little bit. The audience screen. It's really good to know that the guys at Crux have some of the most experienced people in our industry guiding them. We're presented with good quality recruits appropriate for the positions we're looking to fill. We save money by not having to spend time trawling through hundreds of applications and significant time saved by training the right people who stay with us. That's Dee Queeley from Queeley & Co. An absolutely fantastic agencies, isn't it? So that's a nice applaud. And then we've got Kevin Shaw as well here. My first and main experience with Crux was with Steve Mead, which I can honestly say that I now class as a true friend. From day one, he found out about me personally, then became invested in me, and has always put my best interest at heart as main priority. His advice I take 100% and could not continue my journey in this industry without his support. I fully recommend having him as part of any business. That's the sort of thing you want to be hearing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you paid them both for that, but yeah, of course.
Don't show the secrets again. That's not how it works.
No, of course we haven't paid for it. And yes, of course, it's very heartening that people have taken their time and effort to make those reviews. And it's nice to hear. It's an indictment of what we're saying. And I particularly like both their comments were about the fact that they, Kevin has obviously enjoyed the mentoring experience that Steve provided. And Dee sees the additional value in the people being guided beyond just physically being put into his business.
Those are really good points, aren't they? Exactly. It's not just about, they're doing more. You're going beyond the pale here, really, to try and help people out, which clearly comes across in, as you said, both of those, really. That's really, really good, Ian. So what advice would you give? Clearly, actually, an interview, and it's quite often forgotten that an interview is a two-way streak, isn't it? And as much as possible, obviously, you just spoke about there, sometimes the businesses don't put themselves in the best light. Is there any simple advice or tips you can give to agents themselves about making themselves, as attractive as possible to potential candidates?
Yeah, look, I think be honest about the job you're offering.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of mis-selling.
Yeah.
So therefore you might nail the candidate, but when the candidate comes to work, there's a disparity between, and all you've done is just caused yourself to go back through the process again.
You've just paid that problem forwards, haven't you? Because it's going to come up surface in a few weeks, months' time, basically, isn't it?
Well, and if it's a few months' time, you've paid the bill by then. I mean, it's like it doesn't really work for you if you've used a recruiter. So be honest, be you, be very clear about what the prospects are. Make sure that you've investigated the commerciality of the offering to make sure that you're not, clearly you don't want to be paying too much, but you also don't want to be paying too little, because if people are accepting too little, you are not getting the cream.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I'm not saying overpay. I'm just saying make sure that if you want, you cannot, the simple law of economics, you can't pay a little and get a lot. No. It doesn't work.
Do you give advice just on that point? How far does the consultative process go in terms of, can an agent talk to you about what they think they should be paying, how that should be structured in terms of a basic, in terms of commission, or do you not get that involved?
No, we offer free consultancy exactly on that, where we'll do research into the marketplace. Particularly for subscription clients that want, we'll do it for anybody, but with a subscription client, we can spend a lot more time building their, what it needs to be. Now, of course, it's advisory. We're providing advice, we're not the stakeholders. I'll give you an example of a situation where we had in the greatest city on earth. Now, you'll know what city that is. Some listeners won't know, but we just placed somebody in the greatest city on earth, and the basic situation was that the guy had been trying to self-fill the role for some time. And to be fair, we then took on the role, and we had been trying for some time, certainly since before Christmas. And the issue was, in this particular instance, that everybody in that area, if you worked the Saturday, gave a day off in lieu.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this guy was adamant that, it would cause problems with his team and everything else and blah. But when we then sat down and looked at it, he was also having problems with retention. Now, one of the reasons he's having problems with retention is because his hours and his work rota were out of kilter with his competitors.
Yeah.
So we were able to provide two things to him that were of value. One, we showed him how to change his rota without necessarily jeopardizing the ability to be open and work well.
Yeah.
Give us a slightly different wording. We didn't change the salary one bit. The salary didn't change at all. But there became a slightly different rotated thing that if you worked the Saturday, there was a day off in lieu in the week. All of a sudden, we've got 3 or 4 candidates that are very interested. He job offered yesterday, deal tied up today, within his budget. And in my opinion, yet to be proven, obviously, we've also solved that he probably won't need to come to us in quite as quickly as he would have done had he stuck with his old rota, because he was going to keep losing people to the fact that you can't make people work 6 days a week anymore. It's just not.
No.
It's just not what people do. But some people will do it if you pay them. If you're clear and say, look, we're going to ask you to work 6 days a week, but we'll pay you 15, 20% more than anyone else. Of course, some people will do that. But this guy was asking to pay the norm.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it wasn't that it was just that the market had moved on from it stayed where he was. No recruiter had ever said, hang on, this is broken. You're going to keep coming back to us. We're going to keep charging you. We're going to keep putting people in. Let's stop this for a minute. Let's unplug. Let's look at your retention. The reason you're losing the staff, this is the reason.
So you give honest feedback, even if it's not, even if it's not always the easiest feedback.
Look, you know me, Simon, from my other facets. There's no way I'm going to hold fire on. I don't believe it solves a purpose to not tell people what you're thinking or what your advice is. Now, whether they take it or not, whether you're right or wrong, those are all up for debate. But what is a wrong behaviour is to remain silent when you see a client in trouble, or to tell them something that is wrong when they're in trouble. Either of those two things have got to be worse than, they might not feel it at the time of the conversation, but surely people need to know what they need to know, not what they want to hear or silence.
I couldn't agree more, mainly because I fall on the other side. And we got a really good question here, actually a couple of questions which I'll divide up for you from James White. Thanks, James, for jumping in with this. So I'll ask the first. It's, do you think the quality of the work environment, office setting, if relevant, makes a difference to the candidates?
I think it makes a difference to the candidate, potentially the way where they're interviewed. Famously at Romans, we used to interview always at HQ, no matter where the office was, because it was a very impressive building.
It was stunning, wasn't it? Yeah.
No other agents outside of perhaps London and the Foxtons of this world would have had anything remotely like it. But I think I can't remember your viewer's name. What was his name?
It was James. James.
I think where it makes a bigger difference is in retention.
Okay.
I think if you've got a scabby environment that's not decorated very well, that your estate's out of touch, it's not particularly well, it's not clean, it's not tidy, there's not a good staff area, it's not ventilated, there's not air conditioning, it's small, it's tiny. I think it definitely has an impact on retention. Definitely, there's no question in my mind on that. If you,
it's funny you say that. One of our colleagues, who shall remain nameless, in the prop tech trade, he was forever banging on that the staff were absolutely up in arms every summer because the office just literally, South Face and whatever else was absolutely sweltering. And he was remarking on it in terms of, they're always whinging. And it was like, well, how much is it to put in there? And it was obviously a few grand, but it was like, when he finally did it, of course, and I think he set them some targets to do it, literally the performance levels in the summer months was demonstrably highlighted. And it's just such a classic example, isn't it, of a penny saved here and there can really affect you down the line if you're not careful.
Well, and also, I mean, look, I know we're talking about recruitment here, but what about the customers looking in? I mean, come on. I mean, if your environment is, I personally think estate agents need to reimagine their office layouts anyway, but whether it's traditional or non-traditional, if it's a restaurant, and Dale Norton always used to say this to us, if your restaurant looks 5-star and full of, look, people will come in and eat at your restaurant, but if it looks crap and horrible, and like you're going to get sort of salmonella or something, people aren't going to come in.
Dale was a proponent then of if it's a busy restaurant, people sat in the window, that's a place for him, basically.
Busy, clean, tidy, professional. Yeah, of course. I was earning, I'm not going to say how much I was earning, but I would have been earning a lot of money and would have been sweeping and de-weeding the path outside the front of Roman's offices, because it was bred into us, because that was the pride of being a Roman.
He was talking. When was he talking? He was talking to Peter Knight and one of those dudes there, and they were asking him what he'd be doing during the lockdown, and he said, "I'll be having a good sneak around the offices right now, as you just highlighted there, having a look at how everything's been, whether it's all clean, tidy, everything else." I just love the idea of him, doing that, even the position he is. So anyway, it was quite amusing.
Every Sunday, particularly once he got his motorbike, and we knew he'd been round as well, because there was either a note through the door or your little red beeper was flashing to say there's a message, and it was like, it's Dale. Oh, fuck. What's he found? Now, sometimes it was actually say, look, guys, I've noticed your office. It was A1, well done, thank you very much. But more often than not, you'd get the call if it was something else, like who's done the weeding? Where's their fag butts? Why is there chewing gum?
It's that attention to detail, isn't it? It's fantastic. And then James had a second part, which I think, again, is really interesting. Will people still want 100% of expected salary if they are able to or want to work from home?
Will people still want 100%? I don't know the answer to that, James. What I do know is that we are able, people are, well, I do know the answer to it because people are accepting slightly lower salaries if work from home is involved. So, and I do know people that have reimagined, Simon, based on our very right back at the start of this, where they are now going to have, maybe 2 days work from home, 2 days work in the office, that type of scenario, where they've offered that out to their staff.
Yeah.
But with a slightly reduced rate of salary, the take up has been quite high. So, of course, there are different types of people, James. Some people it will just be about the salary. For me, I've got to be honest with you, working from home is hell on earth. I wouldn't take less for it. I would want more to do that. Because I need and want the interaction of other people. So it depends how you're built. But the evidence would suggest that I'm in the minority, because we are giving out dual offers now, where it's either in the office or it's 2 days at home, 3 days at home, or 1 week at home, 1 week in the office. But the pay is different because there's less travel expenses and that sort of thing. And people are accepting it. They are taking those jobs at the lower rates. So very pertinent point. And hopefully Simon's listeners can have a good think about that, because it clearly is a topic that needs to be highlighted.
Not going to go away anytime soon, is it? So you might as well start thinking about it now anyway, because it has changed. It's quickened what people were always anticipating. Clearly, technology now can genuinely deliver on. It is exactly the same, if not better, being working from home as it is from working in the office in many examples, isn't it? So yes. I mean, as you say, I think what the lockdown or COVID or whatever you want to call it has done is it's expedited both technological change in how we deliver the service as estate agents, and it's definitely changed the working environment for every business. The ability, I mean, we're about, as you know, Simon, because we're talking to you about a project, we're about to take on a 40-desk call center. Yeah.
If you knew how much I could get it for,
yeah,
and how long the free period was,
yeah,
it's eye-wateringly cheap.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? Opportunities are out there, aren't they? Okay, and I suppose here we are. James has actually just come back as well. Just one more. He's obviously getting his pound out your ear here. Company cars, are they still relevant versus the allowance? Vehicle allowance, I think that is.
Yes, we have people that won't give car allowance. Won't give a company car because of the aggro of looking after the fleet.
Yeah.
Which eliminates some of our talent pool from being willing to work for them. However, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I am just saying to you that if you have the option of both, then you have the entire talent pool at your disposal. There are some people who, if there isn't a company car involved, wouldn't work for that company.
Yeah. Okay, hopefully that helps there, James. So look, my key takeaways from this, Ian, then in terms of we've got Crux. Look, you spend a lot of time, energy, and indeed backed up by technology, really understanding the candidate's needs. But obviously, as well, you're working with businesses all the time to understand exactly what they're after as well. So it's a proper dual approach, isn't it, to make sure both sides of the party are dealt with and their expectations are met.
I'd like to sort of label us as a people business that's got recruitment as one of its obvious customer-facing elements. People come to us because they want to fill a vacancy, but we can deal with any one of those people businesses, which is retention, recruitment, training and development, and then HR if there's an issue. You don't have to do all four of them. You can mix and match. You can do any one of the four. You can do the beginning and the end. You can do the two in the middle. You can do all four. But we're unique in that. And then we have a charging model, which is very fair, very reasonable. You can pay by the month, whether it's subscription or not. Even if on the recruitment only, you don't have to give us a lump sum. You can pay us monthly for the person we pay. And
the main part I see of that, there's a number of benefits, but then one of the main benefits is it just takes the risk out of hiring, doesn't it?
Well, if the person leaves, you stop paying. I mean, our contract says if the person leaves, you stop paying. So let's just say you pay a recruiter, average fee might be £3,000. And after the rebate period, which is typically 3 months, that person leaves, you've still spent the £3,000. Yeah. With us, you would have only spent a quarter of it. You'd only spent, because you pay over 9 or 12 months, you'd have only spent between a third and a quarter of that 2,000. So it lowers the risk. But it also to a degree stops. It's also another part of us. It stops us fishing back in your pond, because why would we take someone out if we're already getting paid on them? It just doesn't. It's a bad behaviour from a recruiter to do that.
It reinforces the best behaviour, doesn't it? Best practice, essentially.
Yeah, I think so. Best behaviour, yeah, for sure.
So recruitment, as we know, is obviously a massive investment in your business. By hiring that right team, you can obviously increase retention and therefore performance. So that obviously that's the reason why you're going out there getting these people anyway. And then third, as you've been talking about there, Crux is different. There is these different elements to the kit bag of Crux essentially there. Your service obviously has these AI search capabilities that you were kind of alluding to earlier. And obviously you've got a massive and ever building list of candidates and contacts. Matching obviously them up perfectly to the jobs that they're looking for there. So I have to say at this stage, look, I am slightly biased. We've used you previously, and everything you've said today, in terms of the experience, being absolutely straight up and honest is certainly borne out by my experience. But then again, you'd be a bit of a fuckwit to try and pull one over on me for a second time anyway.
Yeah, I did it once, yeah, many years ago.
Yeah, it's not like we go on about it all the time, is it? So, Ian, you've been really kind as well. So you've got a deal on the table for Kerfuffle members, haven't you, as well? Just on that piece. So do you want to talk about it? I think it's that 50% one you were talking about before, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, if you want to get involved with us, your first placement that we do for you, we will charge you 50%. We need you to prove that you're a Kerfuffle member. If you're not a Kerfuffle member, then go and sign up to be one. We don't mind whether you've only just done it or whether you've been a member for years. Please do it either way.
Free of charge, everyone. Yeah.
Free of charge to join Kerfuffle. And as long as we've got categoric proof of that, then we will do your first placement. As long as we're not already contracted to us, we've not already done dozens with you guys. These are new clients. We'll do that at 50% on the recruitment side. We'd love to work with you all.
Excellent. Well, Ian, that genuinely is a fantastic offer. I thank you once again for thinking about. You're obviously there's a bit of karma here coming back to pay me back over the years, but I know the quality. I know obviously the supplier side about as well as anyone, probably apart from your good self. And I know that the companies you deal with, they genuinely. I can think of 2 or 3 that you have virtually helped build their sales teams, a lot of their account managers and everything else. So. Look, recruitment is always a gamble, but as much as possible, I see you guys doing a really good job of minimising that risk as much as is humanly possible, which is the name of the game, isn't it? That's where the expertise why people come to you.
Absolutely, yeah. Minimise the risks.
Cool. I've got an actual referral for you, which I will forward on to you afterwards, Ian, from Malcolm. Thank you. So there you are. And we will catch up another time. Please, anyone, reach out to Crux directly. Ian, you can find him anywhere on social media. He's an even bigger social media whore than myself.
That's not true.
Or, of course, find them on their wonderful landing page on Kerfuffle, the big pink site itself. Have a look at Crux, speak to Ian. Ian, thank you once more again for joining us here today, and thanks for answering all your questions.
Just quickly for your guys, if they are trying to look us up, it's Crux Careers. Just remember there's a second word. Crux Careers.
What, are you saying there's something like, is there some dodgy site out there as well?
I don't know, but if they put in Crux, they might not find us. But it's cruxcareers.co.uk.
I won't tell you where my mind was going with that. But anyway, Ian, thank you very much once more. Cheerio, matey. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers, Simon.